Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from the beautiful metaverse and more specifically from beautiful Danville, Illinois, homeland of the Corellian tradition, and welcome to Midday with Reverend Don. And as you know, if you follow Midday with Reverend Don, you can type your questions or comments into whatever platform you're watching on, and for most of those platforms, your comments will show up here in my chat room. I do not have a guest today, so the chat room is here on the screen and we can all share it together. And I hope you're having a lovely day. I hope you've had a lovely week. And today would usually be our weekly roundup of stories, but today I have a different subject matter, and that is the upcoming auction for Divination TV and Corellian TV on Sunday. This coming Sunday, which will be January 26th at 5 p.m. Central. And this will be our next auction through Gaia Thrift, and it is entirely to benefit the broadcasting that we do. And I hope that you will join us for that auction, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about it. And hello to Renee in the chat room. It's good to see you, Renee. If you want to know where to find that auction, it is going across the screen at the bottom. It is whatnot.com/user/GaiaThrift/shows, and you will find it listed there. And if you don't already belong to Whatnot and you join with our special invite at whatnot.com/invite/GaiaThrift, you can get 15 free dollars to spend, which is a lovely offer. And we have a number of interesting things to buy. And we'll be talking about a few of those today, and probably whatever else happens to cross the screen. I want to take a moment to wish a happy birthday to my grandmother, the Lady Mabel High Corell, who would be celebrating her 126th birthday today, and is among the ancestors and was a huge influence on my life. She was a most remarkable woman and the subject of many interesting stories. I have not perhaps talked as much about her as some of my other ancestors, but in daily life, I certainly do. And probably will talk more about her. She was a very beautiful woman and had several husbands during her lifetime. I have 3 grandfathers through her, and was very much involved in many of the happenings of the 1920s and 30s here in central Illinois, prominent in the Prohibition era and afterwards, and had a great many adventures in her life. And so, grandmother, in the land of the ancestors, I hope you're having a wonderful anniversary of your earthly birth. And if today is your birthday, happy birthday to you. And getting back to the auction, we have a number of interesting things there. I'm going to go through a few of them. One of them is a pizza card deck. And this is a card deck suitable for divination. It's a playing card deck, but these are also used for divination. And it's in the shape of pizza slices. So if you have a thing for pizza, this would be a wonderful deck for you. Another item that we have is the last available copy of the collector's version of Reverend Don's Super Omnibus of Incantations and Invocations for All Occasions, and that will be part of this auction, and it will be signed, numbered, and dated by me. And you can have that if you are interested in that. And we have a variety of things that are going to be available in this. And we have lots of cards. We have, for example, we have, for example, I believe the Fridella Adventure Tarot, which is basically a comic book art style tarot with an adventure theme. I believe that will show up. We have the Neo Waite Tarot, which is um, a version of the Rider Waite Smith deck in a parchment and ink format. We have the Lauratoine Lenormand Oracle, which is based on the Lenormand system of reading from the 19th century. We have miniature Visconti Tarot, um, and many other interesting things. And why? Oh, and hello to an invisible friend in the chat room, and hello to Magical Mermaid in the chat room. It's good to see you. And why are we doing this auction? Well, we're doing it because, as I've said in the last couple of shows, um, doing this is not a free service. We have to pay for the various things we use to broadcast. Our sponsors do help to defray some of that cost, but a certain amount still comes out of people's pockets, and we would like to see more sustainability. And this is one way of building toward that. And we hope that if you enjoy our programming, that you will join the auction and perhaps find something that you like there. We have a number of interesting things, more than I've talked about. And hello to Gary in the chat room. It's good to see you, Gary. And there will be many interesting things to look at and to bid upon. And so, again, Sunday, 5 p.m. Central, we'll be doing that. And, you know, for us, this year, 25 Aquarius is, I believe, our 10th year our 20th year, I beg your pardon, in video broadcasting like this. We've been doing video longer, but internet broadcasting, I believe we probably started in late 2004, but in 2005 we started the present channel that continues. And, you know, 20 years is a long time to be doing this. And Magical Mermaid says software, electricity, internet provider, yes, all of those things cost money. And, you know, occasionally there are also things like programmers that are necessary, although not like they once were. You know, I remember our very first live cast was from the Salem Witches Ball of 2010, maybe 2011. And in order to do that, and it did not exactly go off without a hitch, but in order to do that, we needed a tea tray full of equipment that was being rolled along behind our broadcasters. And to look at how far we've come. And hello to Ed in the chat room. It's good to see you, Ed. It is a huge change in what we are able to do, and we are still here doing it. And we're still going to be here tomorrow. And if we are successful in everything we want to do, we'll still be here when I am among the ancestors. And some other person will be broadcasting to you, and or a electronic version of myself. And we have the desire to build for the ages. Oh, and Edward says, oh yeah, that was something. Yes, it was. It was something. We have had many adventures, and Magical Mermaid says, sounds like a good subject for a documentary, 20 years. You know, it actually is, and we probably should do that during the course of this year. A couple of years ago, I did a similar documentary over my career as, my career in pagan media, starting with the Pagan Press 30 odd years ago, and coming up through the internet. And that was a fascinating program. You can find it in our archives at Magic TV. And it included a lot of talk about people and things that are no longer with us. It included stills from magazines that no longer exist. And of course, parts of our videos, because When I first became a pagan journalist, and I won the Silver Salamander Award for Excellence in Pagan Journalism all the way back in 1986. But when I first started, it was all in print. Um, and Edward says, Adventures in Pagan Media. That is the name of it. You can look it up in our archives. And Magical Mermaid says that predates YouTube. Well, yes, it does. It predates YouTube by a long time. And in fact, one of the things that you may not know is that before YouTube actually came online, we were trying to develop a similar platform ourselves. The original idea for Magic TV was not to be a channel, but to be a platform for videos. But they beat us to it, not surprisingly, as they were much more highly funded, by just a couple of weeks. And so in the end, we decided it was better to go ahead and join than to compete, because the first to enter the market is usually the one that's going to survive. And we've been on YouTube ever since and plan to stay on YouTube ever since. But of course, you can also see us in so many other places. Edward says, we're a founding member of YouTube. We are. We have a special account owing to our age that allows us to do things that many other YouTube members could not do because we were grandmothered in, so to speak. We have been there virtually since the beginning. And we have watched YouTube grow into what it is today. We were there when it faced its crisis a few years ago and survived. And, we not only use YouTube, but we enjoy YouTube. I love YouTube. I frequently, when I have downtime, and Edward says it was February of 2006. Okay. Yeah, 2006, that we started the YouTube channel. And yeah, when I have downtime, I often will watch YouTube videos. I enjoy their musical selections. I sometimes will watch snippets of various programs there that I wouldn't necessarily watch anywhere else. And I found some really interesting things on YouTube because, my tastes are not ordinary. I like things that, I also like things that other people like, but I'm just as likely to listen to someone like Maroon 5 or the Hot Sardines or Old Leatherface. And if you're not familiar with the second two of those, look them up on YouTube. They're very good. Although they are their own styles of music. The Hot Sardines are big band music. In a modern context, they have some wonderful videos. By Mir Bis Duchesne is probably their biggest one. They also have a version of When I Get Low, I Get High, featuring Alan Cumming. Old Leatherface does traditional folk songs. And I found him through his version of Oh Death. And if you're not familiar with Oh Death, you should look it up. Edward says, old horror movies. Yes, you can find old horror movies there. I love old horror movies. And Steve Taylor says, ditto here. I watch a lot of YouTube. I think YouTube is one of the best things that the internet has done for us. I think that YouTube has made video consumption so much more universal and user-friendly. I love old horror movies, and I have found, I think they're all there if you look for them. And some of them you can find for free. Some you might have to pay a small price for. I purchased my favorite horror movie, The Mummy from 1932, for a couple of dollars. And let's see, Magical Mermaid says, Don, do you remember Underworld Classroom Channel? I miss her channel. I'm afraid I did not know that channel. But that's a very important point, Magical Mermaid, that there are many creators on YouTube who were wonderful but did not survive. There used to be one called Wickerworks, who was a miniature maker, because I love doing miniatures. I love miniature making. She had a wonderful channel, very creative, um, but it did not survive, and you cannot find it now. She left YouTube. There was another one, Langer Colors, who did beautiful work, but her channel is gone. Um, and then there are people like Bentley House Minis who are still there, still surviving as we are. And I'm very grateful to the ones that just keep on working. Um, and this speaks to us once again of why it's so important to maintain our archives. And when I talk about someone like Langer Colors, um, she has nothing to do with paganism. She is a miniature maker, a doll maker in particular. But I would love to be able to access her archives, but they're not to be found, at least on YouTube. And I hope that is never the case with our archives. I hope you can always find them. And an invisible friend says, I'm addicted to Townsend's. Well, I am too. If you're not familiar with Townsend's, that is a channel that recreates 18th century recipes, particularly if they involve nutmeg. And it is Magical Mermaid says, Spirit Bob passed away about 2 years ago, but many don't know that. So I assume that is the person who did Underworld Classroom Channel. And I wish them well among the ancestors. I'm sorry to hear of their passing. I'll have to see if that channel is still, if the archives are still accessible on YouTube. Yes, Magical Mermaid says the channel lives on. And I think that's very important. I think that those people I'm talking about who are no longer accessible on YouTube must have removed their content. Because I know many people whose channels are still there long after their last upload, which I think is one of the best things about YouTube, that it does not disappear necessarily. Townsend's does those historical recipes, as I was saying, from the 18th century. It's a fascinating program if you're interested in history. Tasting History with Max Miller is another one that does historical recipes from all throughout the historical spectrum. Fascinating things. There are fascinating musical artists. I've long been addicted to Nick Patera, who does wonderful music on YouTube. There are many others. I mentioned the Hot Sardines. I mentioned Old Leatherface, and yeah, there are so many things you can find there. So many artists. The Iron Hill Vagabonds. I met the Iron Hill Vagabonds at the Florida Renaissance Festival, the Northeast Florida Renaissance Festival. I interviewed them a couple of times. You can find that in our Magic TV archives. But they have their own YouTube channel where they do traditional folk music. Celtic Mayhem, met them through the Renaissance Festival. They have lots of things on YouTube. If you enjoy that sort of Renaissance fair folk music offering, you can find a lot of that on YouTube. And where else would you find it? Not on commercial stations in the normal sense. Back in the day, before there were things like YouTube, you had to look for things like that. And of course, you still have to look through their vast archives. But it's not like it was. These things are now far more accessible to people. Another thing I like to watch on YouTube is Kabuki. I'm a great fan of Kabuki theater, and you can find lots of Kabuki offerings on YouTube, as well as lots of discussion about Kabuki and Bunroku and other traditional Japanese art forms that once would have taken great research to learn about. And now it takes only a little bit of research. And this is why I love the internet. And I think you should too, because you can learn these things so much more easily. I wish when I was young, it had been that easy to learn that much about Kabuki, because I've loved it since I was a young person. In those days, you had to look through libraries for books or find places to order them to learn this sort of thing, and video was not really a possibility because video as such did not really exist when I was young. There were a few commercial channels that were accessible, and other than public television, they mostly played um, only things that were popular to many people. So if you had a niche interest, it was very hard to find it. An Invisible Friend says, there's so much cool stuff. I'm grateful for reincarnation. Absolutely, because there's more than we can learn in one lifetime. And Magical Mermaid says, geisha culture is a favorite of mine. And that's a fascinating thing to learn about too, and lots of that on YouTube. And Daniel, hello to Daniel in the chat room. Daniel says, I agree. As a guitar maker, I'm fond of watching the Japanese wood making with special joints, no glue or anything like that. Shocker. Gary says, I love live streams, so many to choose from. Absolutely, including this one. And it's wonderful to have this variety. We did not have this when I was young. Of course, we had dinosaurs when I was young, but we didn't have this. Um, and I don't know if there are too many people in the chat room who are of a similar vintage to myself. But if you are, you know how far we've come and how much more is available today. Just imagine what's going to be available tomorrow. And I know some people who are afraid of it or don't want to see it and wish they could go back in time. And I just shake my head because I would never want to not have access to the level of knowledge I have access to today. Now, yes, there are also negatives to that, including the fact that you have to be careful sometimes of what you do and do not believe. But that was true before, too. As a person who was extraordinarily well read, I can tell you not all of those books knew what they were talking about. And Magical Mermaid says, you had the Munsters, Reverend Don. Well, yes, we did, and the Addams Family. And Steve says, as a musician, YouTube is very helpful to my pursuits. Absolutely. Invisible Friend says, back in the old days, witchcraft had to find you. And yes, that's certainly to a large extent true. I was very lucky to come from a hereditary family, so it was around me from birth. And I was also lucky to come from Danville, because we had even then a lot more here than I think they had in many places. Because I can remember as a teenager and even as a preteen, seeing books on modern Wicca at the local tobacconist in downtown Danville, which I think was pretty remarkable, although I didn't realize it at the time. I was very glad to find them there. That's where I got, for example, my golden treasury of The Witch's Almanac, when it first came out in, I think, 1976. But in so many places, that would never have been possible. And today, everything is accessible. And people who, well, some people really are upset by that because they want to control access to what people can think and do. I'm not one of those people. I want everyone to be able to learn what they want to learn. And doesn't necessarily mean that I will personally step in and teach them, but I don't want to stop them. And I am not in great sympathy with those who do. And Daniel says, some of the conspiracy theories almost come back to life after internet. Some of them have almost disappeared, like the flat earth theory, for example. Yeah, the internet has been very good for conspiracy theories, but they were there well before the internet. I remember when I was young, my father had a friend, because my father was one of those people who never met a stranger. And this man, he was a nice man in his late 70s, early 80s, but he was definitely a conspiracy theorist, and he used to hand out pamphlets about how the Soviet Union was going to take over the United States within the next year or so in the 1970s. And he even had the new map of how they were going to reconstruct this, which obviously did not happen. But he thoroughly believed it. That was one of many bizarre conspiracy theories of that time. Of course, we have many bizarre conspiracy theories today. And I guess we always have and we always will. The problem that we face as a people is making sure that we develop our critical thinking skills enough so that most of us are not subject to conspiracy theories, but can tell the difference between useful knowledge and silliness. Magical Mermaid mentions Bewitched, which was a feature of my childhood. Wonderful program. I loved Bewitched, and like most of our people, I identified with Endora. I thought she was a wonderful grandmother, and never did quite understand what Sam saw in Darren. But Bewitched was a fascinating program when you look at it, because many people interpreted it as really being about existing as a minority, and particularly the LGBTQ minority. And it's come out since that that's actually how they intended it, that many people involved in that program were LGBTQ, and they understood the messages they were sending in that program. And that is very interesting to realize. And the fact that that was really the only way through mass media to make a statement on that sort of subject is very important to think about as we come into the present era, where there are people who certainly are going to try to limit what people can say. And one of my big subjects for this last year has been how we deal with that. And there are a lot of ways, including the possibility that we may have to find ways of saying things without necessarily bluntly saying them. And Daniel says, my opinion on conspiracy is always, how could I possibly act on that? And what do you want me to do about it? My thought on most of these conspiracy theories is, how could you possibly be in possession of the knowledge you're claiming to have? You are not that well connected or moving in those circles. I do not believe for a moment that you know deep government secrets and so forth. Magical Mermaid says, long live Barbara Eden, from Jeannie. And she has done that. She is, I believe, in her 90s now. The latter part of her 90s and going strong. Barbara Eden has been incredible. And it's fascinating to look at all of these things. And you can see them on YouTube. Just as you can see this on YouTube, and you can see us, hopefully, for a very long time on YouTube. And if you want to support us on YouTube and on many other platforms, join us this Sunday for our auction in support of our broadcasting at whatnot.com/user/GaiaThrift/shows. You'll find it there. And if you don't already belong to whatnot.com, you can join it with our invite, whatnot.com/invite/GaiaThrift, and you'll get $15 free to spend. And we hope that you will do that. We hope we will see you there, and we're going to have some really interesting things to offer. With that, I need to take a moment for a message from our sponsors. Why? Because we love.
Ready to unlock the secrets of the universe? Join me, Reverend Don Lewis, for my metaphysical and magic auctions at Gaia Thrift at whatnot.com. Discover fascinating artifacts, mystical crystals, and rare and unusual books that could change your life. Don't miss this chance to bring a little magic into your world. Reverend Don's Metaphysical and Magic Auctions, where the extraordinary can become yours.
And we want to thank our sponsors, Equinox Learning Hub and Reverend Don's Metaphysical and Magic Auctions. Again, our next auction through Gaia Thrift will be in support of our broadcasting on Sunday at 5 p.m. Central. I hope you will join us for that. And a final thought for you, why do we have ads on this program? Well, because it's not free to broadcast. And it's a lot for anyone to have to support out of their pocket. We're very grateful for the support we have, both from individuals and from sponsors. We hope to have more sponsors going forward in the future. And we're also grateful for the support we get through things like this coming auction. Anything that you enjoy in the pagan world in the form of broadcasting, magazines, etc., probably is costing someone money to produce. And anything you can do to support that is going to help them and help you by keeping that resource available to you. Because there comes a point where people can't afford it indefinitely, and that's when you see a lot of these things disappear. We have stayed all these years, 20 years, because one, we never give up, and two, we were willing to make whatever sacrifices it took to keep going. And there have been times when that's been considerable. And to have a robust and thriving community requires the support of its members. And I know there are people out there who say, everything should be free. And honestly, that's not helpful. That it does not create a sustainable community. And it is not, in my opinion, a worthy point of view. I don't have a lot of use for that point of view. But that's because I've been creating things for this community for 40 odd years, and I know that even the time you put into it, it's not really free. If you think that all the time this program takes is half an hour, I have news for you. It takes more than that out of my day. The other things we do, they're not simple as they might appear. They take a lot of work. And that's true for everything that you find in broadcasting and podcasting and publishing within the pagan community. For many people, it's a full-time job. And I know there are people who feel that asking anything from them is somehow an imposition, and they should be given everything for free. But, life doesn't work that way. And people in the end can only do that for a limited length of time. Magical Mermaid says, all energy is a form of transaction. This is exactly so. And to keep these things going, it needs a certain amount of support. And we have been very fortunate to have a lot of support. And I want to thank all of our supporters for that. And we have some supporters who go above and beyond, including Renee, who's in the chat room, including Maggie, who I don't think is in the chat room today, Daniel, and many other people who have been very strong supporters of our work. And I thank all of them. And Invisible Friend says, it's definitely time to give back. Even a like and share is helpful. And that's absolutely true. And Andre Botello, welcome, Andre. It's good to see you, says, a great head of hair, Reverend Don. What's the secret? Well, thank you, Andre. I am known for my hair. I tend to wear it long, mostly for spiritual reasons. I've worn it long most all of my life. I'd have to say the secret is probably in the genes. I'm grateful to have inherited good hair. If you see photos of my son, he also has very good hair. Magical Mermaid says rosemary oil can be very good. Yes, it can. I think if there's any secret that I personally contribute to, it's taking good care of it. If you're going to have long hair, it is important to take good care of it. I love long hair. I've noticed that there's a huge push to try to get people to cut their hair on the part of hairstylists across the country because, of course, short hair requires much more frequent trips to the hairstylist. But I really hope that the long-haired people will keep their long hair. And I certainly will be keeping mine. One important secret, though, if you're looking for long hair, or how to have better long hair is that you do have to have it trimmed when it starts to develop split ends. And that's a way to keep it looking healthy. So if you follow my broadcast, you'll notice that every now and then um, my hair gets a little bit shorter because I've had those split ends removed. And for me, this is about the length at which my hair will stay healthy. Maybe could get a little bit longer. So in a couple of months, you'll see me have it trimmed again. But what you're not going to see is my hair become short, although occasionally I will pull it back into a ponytail. And then I get letters from people who are afraid that I've cut it, but no, I have not, and I'm not going to. 16 years ago, I went to Great Britain for lustration. If you're not familiar with lustration, it is one of the great, the lustration of the ancestors is the great annual celebration of the Corellian tradition. 16 years ago, I was in Great Britain, and I had my hair trimmed to go to that, and I meant for them to trim it to this length. They did not understand what I was asking for, and they cut it to about this length, and people just went crazy, um, thinking that I was giving up long hair when it was actually a miscommunication with the hairstylist. But it grew back, and it's occasionally been almost down to my waist, but it doesn't usually like to get that long. But yeah, I like my long hair. I couldn't really deal without it. Um, many years ago, I actually did get a short haircut because I felt that I needed to get a conventional job, which didn't actually happen, but that's beside the point. I did it for that reason at the time of my divorce from my late wife. And, I missed having a ponytail. I missed having hair that I can play with, and I will never do that again because it was like losing a small limb. So, yeah, for spiritual reasons and also for that reason, it will stay long as I am alive. So, thank you, Andre, for your compliment. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. We're a few minutes past our half hour, but um, there's no one following, so that's just fine. I hope you've enjoyed this program, and please do join us on Sunday for our auction. And with that, let us close with our prayer as we always do. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you for all that you do for us in our lives, and we ask you to help us to always maintain our energy and the sustainability of our projects. Help us to do those things we care about and to be the change we want to see, to make the world a better place and to do the next right thing, whatever that may be. Even on days that we're tired, even on days that things don't seem to be going right, let us still find the way to go forward in the best way possible. And we thank you for all that you do to help us. Beloved Mother Goddess, beloved Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you with great love, and knowing you are always with us from respect, we thank you for your presence. And may you be blessed now and always. May you be blessed now and always. And I thank you for joining us. And I will see you again on Monday. And until then, may you blessed be.